30 years from now, one of these two people will retire comfortably. The other will spend their retirement worrying about money. They started with the same salary, the same savings, the same goal. One bought a house. The other kept renting. But David does not just rent. He invests the money he would have used as a down payment into stocks. You've heard it before. Renting is throwing money away. But what if the person who kept renting quietly ended up wealthier? Today we're following two friends over the next 30 years. One buys, one rents. And by the end of this story, you might completely rethink everything you've been taught about homeownership. Meet Sarah and David, 30 years old, stable jobs, both earning $80,000 a year. For the last 8 years, they've done something many people struggle to do. They've saved. Every birthday dinner they skipped, every expensive vacation they postponed, every impulse purchase they walked away from. It all led to this moment. Their savings account now shows the same number, $60,000. For years they dreamed about reaching it. Now they're finally here. One Saturday morning, they sit together at their favorite coffee shop. Sarah can't stop smiling. "I found the house." David laughs. "You've been saying that for months." "No," she says. "This is different." She pulls out her phone. 3 bedrooms, a quiet neighborhood, a small backyard, the kind of house she'd imagined ever since she was a little girl. "I can already picture Christmas here," she says. David looks at the photos. It is beautiful. It feels like home. A week later, Sarah signs the paperwork. The moment the realtor hands her the keys, she begins to cry. Not because of the mortgage, not because of the paperwork, because after years of dreaming, she finally has a place she can call her own. No landlord, no inspections, no asking permission to paint the walls, just home. Meanwhile, David makes a decision that surprises almost everyone. He renews his lease. Again, his parents don't understand. "You have enough saved. When are you finally going to buy?" Even his coworkers tease him. "Still paying someone else's mortgage?" David smiles, but the comments stay with him. Sometimes he wonders if they're right. Sometimes he opens real estate websites late at night just to see what he's missing. But every time, he reaches the same conclusion. Not yet. Instead of buying, he invests his $60,000. His friends think he's making a mistake. After all, you can't live inside an investment account. For Sarah, the first few months are everything she imagined. She paints the living room, plants flowers in the front yard, invites friends over for dinner. Every morning, she walks through the house with a smile. This is mine. It's a feeling no rental apartment had ever given her. But then, life reminds her that owning a home isn't just about making mortgage payments. One rainy night, she notices a brown stain spreading across the ceiling. The roof is leaking. The repair costs nearly $4,000. A month later, the water heater stops working. Another unexpected bill. Then comes property taxes, home insurance, routine maintenance, expenses she knew existed, but never truly felt until now. Owning a home feels wonderful, but it also feels expensive. Every time something breaks, there's no landlord to call. The responsibility is hers, completely. Across town, David's apartment has a plumbing problem. He calls his landlord. 2 days later, it's fixed. He doesn't pay a cent. Instead, he continues investing every month. Some months the market goes up. Other months, it falls. Watching his investments lose value makes him uncomfortable. He questions himself. What if everyone else was right? What if I should have bought a house instead? Because while Sarah posts pictures of her new home, David has nothing exciting to post. No house keys, no backyard, no congratulations. Just another monthly investment. Quiet, boring, invisible. And yet, Without realizing it, both of them are building wealth, just in very different ways. The question is, which path is actually leading somewhere better? Because what happens over the next 5 years will surprise both of them. Life begins to settle into a routine. Every month, Sarah makes her mortgage payment. David pays his rent. From the outside, their lives look almost identical. They still meet for coffee, still laugh about the same old stories, still earning similar salaries. But financially, their lives are slowly moving in different directions. Sarah notices something she didn't expect. Every time she makes a mortgage payment, she feels proud. It feels like she's investing in herself. This isn't rent, she tells herself. I'm building equity. And she's right. A small portion of every payment increases the amount of the home she owns. Little by little, the bank owns less. She owns more. It's slow. Sometimes frustratingly slow. But it's happening. Then reality shows up again. One spring morning, she walks outside and notices cracks in the driveway. A contractor gives her an estimate. $2,000. Later that year, the air conditioning stops working. Another unexpected bill. She jokes with David over coffee. I swear my house has a subscription plan for repairs. They both laugh. But inside, she feels something she doesn't admit to anyone. Owning a home is beginning to feel like having a second full-time job. Every repair requires money, planning, decisions. All of it affects the value of the property. She still loves her home, but she finally understands why people say houses are expensive long after you've bought them. Meanwhile, David receives an email. His rent is increasing. Again. He stares at the screen. This is ridiculous. His apartment hasn't changed. The kitchen is still outdated. The bathroom still has the same broken drawer. Yet somehow, he's paying more. For the first time, he feels jealous of Sarah. At least her mortgage payment stays relatively predictable. His housing costs seem to rise every year. That evening, he opens his investment account. The market has had a good year. His balance has grown. Not because he did anything extraordinary, simply because he kept investing. Month after month. He smiles for a moment. Then he closes the app. Because numbers on a screen don't feel the same as walking into a house you own. One gives you emotional security. The other gives you financial potential. And those two things aren't always the same. 5 years after making their decision, Sarah invites David over for dinner. As they sit in the backyard, she says something that surprises him. Sometimes I wonder if I bought too early. David looks confused. I thought you loved this place. I do. But I never realized how expensive ownership really is. She begins counting on her fingers. The roof, the air conditioner, the driveway, property taxes, insurance, maintenance. It never ends. David nods. I've spent thousands on rent. She smiles. And I've spent thousands fixing things I didn't even know could break. They both laugh. For a moment, neither of them knows who made the better decision. And honestly, neither do we. After 5 full years, they are essentially tied. The race is just getting started. Let's pause the story for a moment, because this is where most people make a mistake. They compare a homeowner's mortgage payment to a renter's monthly rent. But those two numbers don't tell the whole story. If you really want to know who is building more wealth, you have to calculate net worth. Not just monthly payments, not just home value, everything. So let's do the math. 5 years ago, Sarah bought her home for $300,000. She put down $60,000 and borrowed the remaining $240,000. Since then, she's made every mortgage payment on time. The good news? She's built equity. The less exciting news? A large portion of her early mortgage payments didn't go toward owning more of the house. They went toward interest. That's how most mortgages work. In the early years, interest takes a much bigger share of your payment than principal. It's not a trick. It's simply how loans are structured. So while Sarah feels like she's paying for her home every month, a significant amount of that money is actually the cost of borrowing. Then there are the expenses people rarely celebrate: property taxes, home insurance, maintenance, repairs, the new water heater, the cracked driveway, the leaking roof. None of those increased her ownership. They simply kept the house livable. Now let's look at David. Instead of using his $60,000 as a down payment, he invested it. Then, every month, whenever his housing costs were lower than Sarah's total housing expenses, he invested the difference too. Some years were exciting. Others were painful. There were months when the market fell so much that he questioned every decision he'd made. One afternoon, after seeing his portfolio drop by thousands of dollars, he almost sold everything. He stared at the screen for nearly an hour. His finger hovered over the sell button. "This is why people buy houses," he whispered. "Houses don't fall 20% overnight." But then he remembered why he started. His plan wasn't to get rich in 1 year. His plan was to stay invested for decades. So he closed the app and went for a walk. Sometimes the smartest financial decision is doing absolutely nothing. By the end of year 5, something interesting had happened. Sarah had built equity. David had built investments. Both had accumulated wealth, just in different forms. But then, something happened that neither of them could control. The housing market took off. Homes across the city started selling for record prices. Sarah's neighborhood became one of the most desirable places to live. One house sold. Then another. Then another. Each one for more than the last. One evening, a neighbor knocked on her door. "Did you hear what the house across the street sold for?" Sarah laughed. "It can't be that much." "It is." She looked it up herself. She couldn't believe it. On paper, her home had increased dramatically in value, without lifting a hammer, without renovating the kitchen, without adding another bedroom. She had simply owned it. When David heard the news, he felt a knot in his stomach. What if I made the biggest financial mistake of my life? For the first time, he regretted renting. He imagined what his life would look like if he'd bought when Sarah did. Maybe everyone had been right. Maybe renting really was throwing money away. That night, he could barely sleep. The next morning, he opened his investment account. His portfolio had also grown, steadily, quietly, without headlines, without neighbors talking about it. It wasn't as exciting as watching a home's value jump overnight, but it had been doing exactly what it was designed to do, growing over time. 10 years in, still essentially tied. Year 13. David is 43 years old. He sits down to do his monthly budget, something he has done every month for 13 years. He opens his rent statement. Then he opens Sarah's last message where she mentioned her mortgage payment. He stares at both numbers for a long time. His rent has now risen past Sarah's total monthly housing cost. For the first time in 13 years, David is paying more to rent than Sarah is paying to own. He can no longer invest the difference. Because there is no difference anymore. His rent has caught up and passed it. He closes his laptop. For the first time in over a decade, he stops his monthly investment contribution. Not because he wants to, because the math no longer allows it. He picks up his phone and calls Sarah. "You're not going to believe this," he says. "My rent just passed your mortgage payment." There is a long pause on the other end. "David," she says quietly, "I've been trying to tell you that for years." He has stopped adding to it, but he is not withdrawing from it either. He is simply going to leave it alone and let time do what time does. 20 years pass. Sarah is now 50. So is David. The two friends meet again. Not at the coffee shop where this journey began, but at a quiet park overlooking the city they both call home. The skyline has changed. New buildings stand where empty lots once were. Neighborhoods that were once overlooked have become some of the most expensive places to live. Time has changed everything, including them. Sarah smiles as she unlocks the front door to the home she bought 20 years ago. The mortgage that once felt overwhelming is still running. But 10 years from now, it will be gone completely. The marks on the kitchen wall where her children measured their height. The tree she planted in the backyard. The front porch where she watched countless sunsets. For Sarah, her home became much more than an investment. It became the backdrop of her life. Across town, David's life looks different. He never bought a home. Instead, he rented apartments in different neighborhoods as his career evolved. He moved closer to work when it made sense. He downsized when he wanted fewer responsibilities. He never spent weekends worrying about roofs, plumbing, or broken furnaces. Instead, he focused on something else. That portfolio he stopped feeding at age 43. He opens the app. The number surprises him every time he looks at it. He hasn't added a single penny in 7 years. And yet, it keeps growing. David is ahead. But Sarah still has something David doesn't. 10 years until her mortgage disappears completely. 30 years. Sarah is 60 years old. She opens her banking app on a quiet Tuesday morning. No mortgage payment is due. For the first time in 30 years. Nothing is due. The mortgage is gone. Completely. The house is hers. Every single brick of it. Her monthly housing cost has collapsed. That's all. A fraction of what she used to pay. Meanwhile, David is also 60, and his rent has been rising for 30 years. No mortgage end date. No asset underneath it. Just a number that keeps rising. But then he opens his investment account. The one he stopped feeding 17 years ago. David crossed $1 million. Not because he contributed every year. He stopped at 43. He got there because he started early. He stayed consistent for 13 years. And then he simply left it alone. Most people compare only one number. Smart investors compare net worth. Because wealth isn't measured by what you own. It's measured by what you own, minus what you owe. Now look at both of them side by side. David is ahead by a significant margin on paper, but Sarah's monthly cost has collapsed to less than $1,000. David is still writing a rent check for over $3,000 every month, with no end in sight. So who won? That is the wrong question. The right question is, what did they each do with their money after they made their decision? Sarah bought a home she could afford. She stayed in it. She maintained it. And she arrived at 60 with a paid-off asset worth over $700,000 and a monthly cost that finally felt manageable. David rented. He invested the difference consistently for 13 years. He never touched the portfolio, even when it scared him. He left it alone when he could no longer add to it, and he arrived at 60 with over $1 million in liquid wealth. Both of them built something real. Neither of them made a mistake. The difference wasn't the house. The difference was the decision they made with every dollar that came after. So what does this mean for you? If you buy what you can genuinely afford, not what the bank says you can borrow. Stay long enough for the fixed payment to work in your favor, because the fixed payment is the hidden superpower of owning a home, and it only reveals itself after years of watching everything else get more expensive around it. If you rent, invest the difference. Not someday, every month. Because David's $1 million didn't come from 30 years of investing. It came from 13 years of discipline and 17 years of leaving it alone. The house doesn't make you wealthy. The rent doesn't keep you poor. What builds wealth is what you do with every dollar that passes through your hands, every single month. for 30 years. If this changed how you view buying versus renting while investing, the difference. Subscribe now and turn on your notification bell because you might not find this channel again. And if you feel like you wasted your 20s, the next video was built for you. How to start building wealth in your 30s from exactly where you are right now. You don't want to miss it.